Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So if you've been following the page for a while, you know for a long time, like 3 to 4 months, I was doing this series, redrafting every single Thursday. We started in 2020, worked our way all the way down to like 2006. But we got to a point where most of the players in the redrafts weren't even in the NHL at this point. So we're switching it up. We are switching to now, if you saw in the title, we're going to be grading NHL drafts every single Thursday. We're going to be starting in 2020, same as the redrafts. Now, when looking at 2020, it's a pretty solid top 10. No one has busted yet. They're only 22 years old, but it's looking pretty promising, the top 10 of 2020. What are these grades going to be? This is not just who's the best player in these drafts. It's going to be based on position value as well as how good they are. You expect something different at first overall versus 9th or 10th overall. I am going to be factoring in how prestigious these prospects were when they were drafted. When looking at it like a second overall, I'm trying to think, second overall most years compared to, say, like Jack Eichel in 2015. I'm going to hold Jack Eichel to a little bit of a standard, considering back when he went in 2015, he was such a highly regarded prospect, would go first overall in a lot of drafts. So those are just some of the factors that are going to factor into these grades. I'm going to be doing it through an A through F system. You know the drill. Without further ado, we're going to start with 10. Let's get into it. At number 10, we have Cole Perfetti. I'm going to be giving Cole Perfetti a B+. As a rookie last year, 30 points in 51 games as a 21-year-old. Really impressive. This year, 19 goals, 19 assists for 38 points in only 71 games. So on pace for right around a little bit under 25 goals and 25 assists. As a 22-year-old, he got healthy scratch in the playoffs, which is just so stupid. It's not really an indication on him. They threw in like Axel Johnson. I can't pronounce his last name, but he should have been cracking the lineup. Maybe he is a little bit undersized, but he is an extremely skilled player. And whether it's going to happen in Winnipeg or he's going to somehow want out if Bonus keeps on treating him like this, I think he's well on his way to developing into around the 60-ish point first liner or a very, very good second liner on a contending team. And at 10th overall, you're not expecting like a franchise piece, but you're expecting a pretty high top of the lineup player. And I think Cole Perfetti's definitely turning into that. Cole Perfetti one day could be a 70-point, 75-point guy. I think at the bare minimum, he's going to be a very, very good second liner for a long time. So I think a B+ is about right for a Cole Perfetti. Next up, Marco Rossi. Same grade, B+. When looking at Marco Rossi this year, 21 goals, 19 assists, playing 16.44 a night. Really has become, after a very disappointing rookie season where he only had 1 point in 19 games, there were a ton of question marks. He was very productive at the AHL level, but it didn't really translate to the NHL. It translated to the NHL. He is a very, very good two-way second-line center at this point, and the offense is only going to improve. This is a guy that had like 120 points in his draft year in the OHL. He is such an offensively prolific player. Once the Wild get more cap space from those Suter and Parise deals, they can surround more talent overall on this team. Marco Rossi, I believe, is going to be a 30 and 30 guy, most likely at the bare minimum, maybe even a little bit better. So when looking at him, I think a B+ is pretty fair. Maybe an A-, potentially. Perfetti and Rossi could both be B+, A- when looking at 9th and 10th overall. Right now, I'd say that they're on track to outperform their draft position. At 9th or 10th overall, you expect between a 50 to 60 point guy. I think that they're going to be north of that. So very good picks, B+ for both. Jack Quinn. I'm going to go with a B. He was very good once he returned from his torn Achilles. He had 9 goals, 10 assists, 19 points in 27 games. I just got to see a full season of him. He had a very good rookie year as well, 37 points in 75 games. I could definitely give him a B+ as well. I like a Marco Rossi and Cole Perfetti. I'm going to go a little bit hesitant on it. Still a very good pick. Still, if he continues to develop with this Buffalo Sabres forward core, he, like those other guys, these three guys are all about the same level caliber of player. They're going to eventually be very good players. I don't know if they're ever going to be star players, but the kind of players that if you are picking between 8th and 10th overall, and let's say that you're coming out of a rebuild, or maybe your rebuild's just getting started, they're very good pieces. Not cornerstone pieces, but definitely that third or fourth best forward on a playoff team that you really need to round out your team with when you have those superstar players to build around. So Jack Quinn, very good pick. Next up, we got a little bit of a disappointing pick, Alexander Holtz. I'm going to go with the C+ for Alexander Holtz. I think that he's better than his production suggested this year. When looking at it, he had 16 goals, which is pretty decent, 28 points overall, 12 assists, but he only played 11:38 a night. Lindy Ruff did not like this guy for some reason. That was the running joke with the New Jersey Devils, was that Alexander Holtz did not really get a fair shake in New Jersey this season. So he put up basically 16 goals. I think 15 of those were even strength, 12 assists, 11 of those were even strength. He was very productive within the Devils' bottom six for a guy that's only 22 years old. He just needs to get more ice time. Will that happen in New Jersey? I don't know, man, considering they have Hughes, Meyer, Heischer, Bratt, Dawson Mercer basically are the top 5 forwards going forward without a doubt, as well as you're paying guys like Eric Hall and Palat to play a decent amount. So when looking at him, he might need a change of scenery next year. I still think that he can be a 50-ish point guy. I don't think that's ridiculous. If you give him any power play at time at all, this year he probably would have had 35, maybe even 40 points. He just needs to maybe go to like a rebuilding situation. He's not going to play big minutes on this team. Hopefully he plays more minutes than 11:38 with the new coach this season. I still have some faith in Alexander Holtz. I think he did kind of get shafted by his situation. When looking at it, if he did end up getting traded to San Jose in that Meyer deal, that probably would have been fantastic for his career. Although he might have not have won as much if he was prioritized in San Jose, I think he's probably scoring 40 to 50 this year. So a C+. A little bit disappointing right now, but it is situational based. Number 6, or 6th overall, Jamie Drysdale. I'm going to go with a C-. This guy just can't stay healthy. He cannot stay healthy. He had that great second year. I believe it was 32 points in 82 games. At 20 years old, looked like he was going to be Anaheim's #1 defenseman going forward. But since then, man, he has not played a lot of games. This year, only played 34 games, only had 10 points. When he was on Philadelphia, once he got traded, only played 18 minutes a night. I think for Drysdale at this point, he's not the same player. Not the same player compared to when he put up 32 points. And even then, his underlying numbers weren't that impressive, especially defensively. I think best case scenario for him at this point is a second pair offensive defenseman, power play specialist. I'm not sure he's ever going to have the two-way game in order to be a legit top pair guy. And especially selecting a defenseman at 6th overall, you expect your future #1 at the bare minimum, a good top pair guy. And for Drysdale at this point, I think it is a little bit disappointing. I think a C+ makes some sense for a guy like Jamie Drysdale. Next up, a defenseman that is developing properly and looks fantastic, Jake Sanderson. I am going to go with an A-. He does look like the Sens' future #1 defenseman. This year played like between 23 and 24 minutes a night. The offensive production wasn't that flashy. He had 38 points in 78 games, but defensively, this guy is very, very good. For someone of his age, only 22 years old, and he's a late Actually, he might still be 21. He has like a July birthday. He's well ahead of his time. He's mature. He's mature for his age. Well ahead of his time, like he's from the goddamn future. But he's very mature when watching him play. He doesn't take stupid penalties. His positioning is very solid, very effective with his stick. I think he's going to be a #1. In order at 5th overall to get an A or an A+, you need to be truly Norris caliber every single year for the most part. So I can't go quite there. I think he's eventually going to be a top 20 defenseman. If he's going to get within that top 10, we'll wait and see. I think an A- for a 5th overall selection defenseman, that makes some sense. Lucas Raymond, I'm also going to go with an A-. I think you can maybe make an argument for an A after this season. When looking at it after a down 45-point season last year, sophomore slump, 31 goals, 41 assists, 72 points. Looked like Detroit's best forward at times. He was definitely better overall in the season than an Alex DeBrincat. Larkin was like point per game, very good defensively. So I think Larkin's a better player still. But at times, this guy carried Detroit in this playoff race. His playmaking, his willingness to just absolutely rip the puck was so on display. He had far more confidence. Again, I can see an argument for an A, but at 4th overall, to get an A, I think you need to be a true superstar. I think Raymond's definitely going to end up being a point per game, maybe even sniffing 90 points. I can't quite go an A quite yet. I got to see another season. Next year, he gets to 80 points. He continues this progression because he has had a little bit of a great rookie year, then dip. We got to see what he does in his 4th year, especially as Detroit continues to get better. A-, very good pick. Not knocking the guy. I understand some people might be calling for an A. I'm a little bit of a harsher grader, perhaps. I'm going to go with an A-. Number 3, 3rd overall, Timmy Stützle. Tim Stützle gets an A. When looking at it, last year he did have that star season, 39 goals, 51 assists. He had a down year this year, which was still 70 points in 75 games. I think next year he's going to bounce back for 90+. So creative with the puck. Yes, he does play with very good guys like Kachuk and Giroux, but I still think that he drives that line. He's very effective. And I think next year we're going to be reminded why Tim Stützle was debated as like one of the top guys do you want to start your franchise around. They definitely need to play play maybe more winning hockey in Ottawa, but it's no denying that Tim Stützle has the potential to be a top 15 player in the entire NHL. In order for him to get an A+ at the 3rd overall spot, I think he probably needs to be a top 15, top 10 player in the entire NHL. So right now I do settle on an A until we see him bounce back and get back to 90 points like I think he will. 2nd overall, Quintin Byfield. I'm going to go with the B+. This is more so draft position. He's 2nd overall. 2nd overall has a far better track record than 3rd overall, than 4th overall, than 5th overall. So in looking at Quintin Byfield, I think he is going to become a number 1 center. This year was massive in his development. I've said it before. He always had the tools. It's just like he finally got the toolbox. It finally clicked mentally how to control his body, overall make the right decision. Quintin Byfield looked very good this season. 20 goals, 35 assists, 55 points. So in looking at him, has he smashed it took him a while, but has he smashed expectations? Do I think it's 2nd overall? In order to get an A- or an A, to get an A, you need to be no doubt like a top 10 player, top 15 player in the entire NHL. Even an A-, you got to be like a top 25 player. 2nd overall has very high expectations. So I'm going to go with the B+. You could make an argument even for a B, I'm not going to lie, for Quintin Byfield. But still, right now, as it's trending, Quintin Byfield looks like he's going to be a number 1 center. And for that reason, B+ seems about fair. And then lastly, Alexi Lafreniere, B. We're going to go with a B. Do I think that he's a worse player than a Quintin Byfield right now going forward? I think they're about the same. But 1st overall is even more prestige. You can arguably give Lafreniere a B- here, just because you look at the overall killers at 1st overall. It is a murderer's row for the most part, besides the occasional Nail Yakupov and Eric Johnson, even Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I'd probably give a B-. But I think Lafreniere, after scoring 28 goals, 29 assists this season, he's going to develop into a good first liner. Will he ever be that number 1 guy on a playoff team? I think that he's going to be more of that number 2. Maybe I'm a hater for that, but I don't think that he's ever going to be a franchise player. And at 1st overall, that's what you got to be to get like even a B+, definitely an A-. You got to be a franchise level player. Like I would give John Tavares probably an A-. Yeah. That seems about right. And he had a fantastic career. He was a legit superstar. So I'm not trying to knock Lafreniere by giving him a lower grade than Byfield, Raymond, Sanderson. It's just harder at 1st overall. And especially with Lafreniere, he was viewed as one of the best prospects of the 21st century for the most part. He had a lot of hype. So I think a B is fair. If I were going to go teeter on 1, I'd be probably closer to a B- than say a B+. Again, just because 1st overall is so goddamn loaded. But yeah, that's my overall grades. Let me flash them now. Lafreniere B, Byfield B+, Stützle A-, Sanderson A-, Drysdale C-, Holtz C+, Jack Quinn B, could go B+, not gonna lie, Rossi B+, and Peretti B+. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about these grades? And I mean, these grades are massive. If I did this last year, Lafreniere would be like a C, C-. Byfield would be like a C-. So a lot of these guys did take massive steps this year. And this draft class is looking pretty good. I think besides maybe Drysdale and Holtz, next year, all of these guys are going to be pretty top of the lineup players on pretty good teams. So this was a very good draft. It's developing very good. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Next week, 2019, work our way down, and I'll be seeing the next one.